This video contains heavy spoilers for both The Office and Stranger Things. If you haven't seen either of these shows, please click away and come back once you've seen them. Trust me, you won't regret it. I know what some of you may be thinking, these two shows have nothing in common. However, you probably wouldn't have clicked on this video if you didn't at least like either or both of these shows. I know I certainly can't be alone in adoring both of them, even though they are drastically different in so many ways. Stranger Things is a quasi-horror show that explores the relationships between a group of kids as they investigate supernatural mysteries in the town of Hawkins, Indiana. They encounter demogorgons and creatures from beyond their universe, which leads to some epic showdowns and some serious tension and intrigue. In stark contrast, The Office is a show about a regular group of people living in the same world that we do. They learn to cope with the daily struggles of working at a mundane job, and maybe along the way they learn a thing or two about what makes life meaningful. Again, you couldn't present two more different shows, but I'm here to tell you that while they may be intrinsically different in almost every aspect, they both do one key thing right that makes both of these shows so successful, rewatchable, and enjoyable. Let's look at what both shows do well individually. For Stranger Things, I think we can all agree that the storylines are generally fantastic. While the focus of the show isn't necessarily horror, it certainly plays a part in building tension with the Demogorgons in Season 1, the possession of Will in Season 2, and the Mind Flayer in Season 3. There are often several different stories going on at one time with different combinations of characters, whether it be Mike and Elle, Steve and Dustin, or Lucas and Max, and they're all about as equally interesting and fun to watch. The Office doesn't rely so much on story. Sure, there's the overarching storylines like Jim and Pam's relationship, Angela and Dwight's relationship, the rise and fall of Andy Bernard, and the quest to find love for Michael Scott. But again, in each individual episode, the characters usually deal with something rather mundane and boring. For example, in earlier seasons, they would devote entire episodes on a seminar on diversity or just an Office Christmas party. In fact, the Office Christmas episode was so successful that they had to include a version of it in almost every season afterwards. Being a sitcom, The Office relies a lot on humor. Michael Scott is the epitome of a bumbling manager who always seems to say the wrong thing at the wrong time. Meanwhile, there's a brewing conflict between Jim and Dwight as they feud for the entirety of 9 seasons. And then there's Andy, who steps in and has conflicts with just about everybody until he becomes a regional manager. What's the common denominator? Why are these shows so wildly successful? The secret lies completely in the characters and their relationships. In order to explore this a little more, it's important to distinguish the two mediums of film and television. Film is limited by the time frame. It's only 3 hours at most, and usually around 2. As such, a single movie doesn't have the luxury of a season of television of having hours and hours to develop their characters. An average season of The Office is about 4 times as long as an average movie. That's one of the blessings of television. The showrunners have the luxury of having more time to build up to an apex that feels not only satisfying, but earned. Pacing is such a huge issue in film because it's so hard to fit a good story in that short amount of time. But television's long running time also has its downsides. Because of the nature of serial television, and especially with the advent and rise of streaming, the viewer can get off the train at any point. They are not obligated to continue watching the show if they don't like it. If the pilot or the first season doesn't sit right, then there is no need for the viewer to continue watching the show. So, how do television shows bring back viewers? It's actually seldom for the story. Here's the thing. You can entice a person to watch a movie that has a brilliant story and maybe less memorable characters. Christopher Nolan films are often this way. You don't necessarily remember the characters of a lot of his films, but you remember the mind-bending story and visuals of a film like Inception. For television, while yes, a strong storyline is also important, that's not actually why most people return for the next episode. They return because of the characters. While Stranger Things is a show that does revolve around an overarching story through its 8-episode seasons, the reason that people care about the story is because they care about the characters, and thus they care about what happens to them. If the relationship between Eleven and Mike doesn't work, would we honestly care about another supernatural human who has mind-bending powers fighting an alien? If that's all we really cared about, you could just watch any of the X-Men films. You care because the Duffer Brothers, the showrunners for Stranger Things, made sure to make these characters as relatable and likable as possible. They may be kids, but they're also so human. The relationships matter to the audience. The reason why you can live with Eleven and Mike being apart almost the entirety of Season 2 is because you know that it will be paid off at the end, and you genuinely want them to meet again. The Duffer Brothers wouldn't hold them apart for that long if the audience didn't care. Then it wouldn't make much narrative sense to sideline one of the most powerful characters in the show. Take the relationship between Hopper and Eleven in Seasons 2 and 3. The reason why the ending of Season 3 matters so much and is so emotional is not because of Hopper's sacrifice, although that's a part of it. It's because as Eleven reads her dad's final letter to her, she remembers how much he really cares about her. That's why it hits home for the audience. You come back to watch 40-minute episodes and 6 to 7 hour long seasons of the show, not because you want to see Bob Newby ripped apart by a pack of demodogs, but because you care about what happens to these characters. That exact same principle applies to The Office. You could develop any show that revolves around a mundane office space, but the reason that the show works is because the characters are so unbelievably strong. Again, just like how the Duffer Brothers stretch out Eleven and Mike's separation for so long in season 2, Greg Daniels, the showrunner for The Office, stretches out the time it takes for Pam and Jim to get together. Once you realize how long the show is as its run goes on for 9 seasons, you know watching the show and watching the 2 characters in seasons 1 through 3 that they're going to get together. But it takes 3 seasons and around 50 episodes before Jim asks Pam on a date. Greg Daniels spends a third of the show's time on the air purposefully not putting these characters together. The reason he can do that is because he knows that we care about them. These were not just characters, these were people. And as an audience, you actively root for Jim and Pam to get together, and that's hard to do. It's hard for a lot of people to care about other real human beings, much less fictional characters. That's why Greg Daniels and the rest of the casting team, with Allison Jones at the lead, spent so much time casting Michael, Jim, and Pam. And that's why at the end of the day, The Office is a romantic comedy, not just a sitcom. Because the sitcom would just be Jim pranking Dwight for 9 seasons, which also would have been great, by the way. But The Office is Dwight asking Jim to be his best man after 9 seasons of feuding. That's true character development. In order for television to capture the minds of the audience, they need to build up good characters. Like I said before, the audience has every right to stop watching after a certain point. And actually, if you look at The Office, a lot of them did after one of the best characters, Michael Scott, left the show. Mike, Eleven, Jim, Pam, Michael Scott, Hopper, Joyce Byers, Dwight, they're not just characters, they're people. And that's why these shows work so well. Thanks for watching this video essay. Comment down below with your favorite Stranger Things or Office moments or episodes. Which show do you like more? If you'd like to see more of these video essays, subscribe and hit the like button and comment down below to let me know. I know that this was a shorter video essay, but if you'd like to see more of these short ones, or if you'd like to see longer ones, please let me know. Check out the description for more of my content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.